This is how I plan my holidays in a budget-friendly and intentional way. I came to the understanding that planning ahead is not all about budgeting. There are certain small little details that we can really make up to be successful, but all over, we want to be more present while we are at our holiday destination. We want to be stress-free and truly enjoy the moments without having any financial worry or afterwards have the math of trying to get rid of the red numbers. In today's video, I want to share how I break things down and what questions you can ask yourself to really make the best out of your holiday trip and maybe even optimize it for the next one coming up. It doesn't really matter if it's a short trip or long term. I think you could always apply it for any kind of situation, but today we're gonna focus on travel. I want to share my experience and what made me consider to do my trip in Alicante, which I've planned in March. If you're new here on my channel, my name is Nina, where I welcome a more simplified lifestyle where I can feel more present and grounded in the now. So first, let's head to destination and travel. One of the biggest aspects when we're going is season. What kind of season are we picking? Do we really want to go in peak season? Maybe the destination you're going has to be in a certain season that you can make the most out of what you want to do or expect. For me personally, as I live in Ireland, the high and peak season is in summer, but it's already nice here, so I'd rather go in off seasons. I usually schedule at the end of winter, early spring. It's just that I get out of the gloomy weather a little bit and have dry or a bit more warm weather to tank up the vitamin D. And this year I decided to go to Spain, Alicante. For me, it's definitely something that I would love to see. Never been to Spain, but there's also more consideration that I took in. How long that I'm traveling. I'm one of these persons that is not a huge fan of long travel flights. It just overall the experience exhausts me quite a lot. So sometimes I do activities that are closer to me rather than going very long flight distance or just overall commuting distance. And that brings me to the next point. We used to go to another airport and thought, yeah, we'll just take that trip of 4 hours to get there and there we can get the cheaper flights. But what if we just take a step back and see what other options we have? It's not always about traveling abroad. Sometimes it makes sense to find destination or explore other things in your own country, because there for sure are areas you haven't seen. But this time we thought maybe there is another approach from a smaller airport that have just 1 or 2 destinations that we can go to in spring. And that's exactly what happened. We checked that airport out and from there we decided our location, which was Spain. Very easy commute, less travel. In half a day we can be there. Obviously, depending on where you're living, might be not always the case. But also categorizing your trip by what you truly want to do there is essential. What kind of holiday are you expecting? Is it a more all-inclusive resort? Do you want to do a bit of sightseeing, traveling, seeing some art, experience the culture? All of that has truly impact how you're gonna plan the holidays, and sometimes also does it make sense to be that many days there? Which we'll touch on in the next point. Your time period really reflects many categories that we can tick, but also optimize. For example, I'm going now for around 10 days, but I made sure, does it make sense to stay in the same place as such as accommodation for the exact 10 days? Maybe you can explore the city in 5 days, and after that, what are you going to do? Sometimes it makes sense that you book just a couple of days in that city, travel on and see different places in a certain spectrum or radar that you can tackle. That can make sense. Or it also depends what kind of commuting you're taking while you're on your trip. Is it you're renting a car? Are you relying on public transport? Are you having fixed day that you want to do certain things? That really helps me as well to stay on track for how many days I really want to go and can make a structure. Obviously, that really depends sometimes on the weather, how you're feeling, and overall you just have ideas. I do love to have 1 day of unexpected sightseeing, just walking and browsing to the streets. This also helps me to understand how much luggage I truly have to bring. I always go with a carry-on and a backpack. That's all I bring, even for these 10 days. Having a minimalistic wardrobe is so much of a game changer. You're more versatile, and the apartment that we choose this year has also a washing machine. So I can even bring maybe less and can wash there. But also when I come home, I don't have to do so much luggage. I really want to take advantage of that. Which also brings me to the point of accommodation again. I am used to going to hotels, maybe have a bread and breakfast as such rate, and I really do love the mix of having maybe a chill day, exploring certain things, but it doesn't really have to be an all-inclusive. I do want to see what the natives offer and the land itself. Overall, I thought, what if we do a different approach? I do love breakfast, but what if we try a B&B and see how that works? We can save food costs, we can cook more or less in our apartment, we can do it in the pajama or any kind of attire that we want to wear in that moment. And the good part about it is I can also explore local markets where I can get maybe fresh food or kind of get the native experience of getting groceries. I always like to browse through groceries, which I think makes also sense, and I'm truly excited to try this B&B. I've never done it in that way, which is great. First of all, also the cost, but I think there's another attraction that I like about it, that I do love to have some coffee shops to explore, and that will allow me to do exactly that. I can go to certain ones in the morning. That can be a big impact. Depending on what you're looking for, what is your experience, but make it clear. Our last point, which is finance. We're going on to the budget section, which I believe is one of the most important steps you can take. Not only I think is budgeting intentionally helping us, but also supporting us, not in a restrictive way that we think budgeting is the worst thing that we can do for our holidays. But sometimes it has to be, we have to see a different approach. So let's see if I can really bring you a bit of a different light in here. I will try to go as advanced as possible, trying to check the flights, how much they roughly are. I usually budget around 100 per way, with luggage and everything included. Then for accommodation, depending on what I do, let's say with a hotel, I might budget as well 80 to 100 per night, which usually leaves me with a rough estimation about 1,200, which I truly got that number as well from last year. I tried to compare what did I do last year, how much did I save, and what actually came down to the final numbers. So sometimes looking through your books can also help. But now, Nina, what am I gonna do even if I roughly know it? Budgeting truly gives the success when you start to do it by habit. So what I want you to do now is have the time frame that you want to save that amount. I try to do it a year in advance or sometimes 6 months. If it's for weekend trips, it can even be shorter, a month or two. Okay, so you're gonna divide that money in that time frame that you're having. So let's say if you're having a year, for example, I usually try to do like 50 or 60 euro per month. So there is a good chunk that I can do away, but it doesn't really hurt me as much. And so you can really keep up the consistency, but it doesn't feel like you're restricting yourself. And then you really have the budget plan in place. And one of the greater tips that I can give you, because it brings me so much joy, but also understanding that the budgeting is truly there to value my presence and financial freedom in a way as well. That is, I'm trying to book my accommodation plus flights usually around 2 to 3 months in advance. Why I do this is to avoid any errors in my budget. Once I paid these two things, flights and accommodation, I can truly see the numbers, what is left, what I have saved so far. That made me also understand, hey, maybe certain activities got a bit more expensive, or I explored other options that I can do while I already saved my budget. And there you can be flexible. Increase it maybe to 100 per month and see how you get on. But the best part about it, which is kind of the fun thing why I always giggle, is you have that money that you see in your bank account or your jar, or however structure you want to do it with, cash or transferring to saving accounts, you will see the final number that you can spend for your pleasure, for your food, for the trips and the sightseeing that you want to do. which is great. So you can truly budget there too. And that allows you so much freedom and less stress that you don't have to worry. And sometimes you even feel like you're free, like your flight is free, your accommodation is free, because you paid that so far in advance and it's out of your mind, the stress is away. And that's my real intention behind it, to have a stress-free holiday, that I can be present. But the finance aspect is sometimes a big deal, and budgeting might be frustrating for you, but I can only recommend you, when you're starting to make small changes and play ahead, even if my plans change, I have enough money with me. And that's the great thing. I think ahead of what is possible in my budget and make the plans. Packaging our luggage, that is definitely something where minimalism shines, where we can be so versatile but also intentional, and it doesn't really feel overwhelming that we might have to pay certain amount because we're over the weight limit. This is something that I want to share with you closer to my trip, and there I'm gonna really show you what I'm bringing and how you can make the most versatile about your wardrobe and planning your destination, and what you truly need can be sometimes essential depending on what activities you're planning. I would love to know how you feel about planning your holiday. What is the most stressful thing that you usually have to deal with? I would love to know in the comments. Or also about a lovely experience that you truly can't miss out every time you go on holiday. Thank you so much for your presence. My name is Nina, and on Ladies Mental, I do want to explore a simplified lifestyle. So follow along and subscribe. I'm glad you stopped by. Thank you. Bye.